The latest news, national issues, the political scene, and conversations with prominent personalities. All these firsthand at the forefront. Good morning. I am Attorney Karen Jimeno. Oracle reader Coach Ana Santiago predicted it first at the forefront on December 31, 2024. Will Vice President Sara Duterte get impeached by Congress? Again, caveat sa mga nanonood. Depends on what the tarot cards will show us. Okay,
We have here the
Six
Six of Wands. With the Six of Wands, it's a yes, but then again, there are certain things that needs to be addressed first. The Six of Wands represent people that is in the eye, people of those certain individuals that have been seen by individuals.
Interesting. Galing nga. And you just picked from here and medyo applicable
And I think
yung
this
answer.
one wants to come out because there would be a new beginning. So, bagong simula. So, alongside with this certain impeachment. But then again, this can take place depending on the decisions of people.
VP Sara Duterte has been impeached by the House of Representatives yesterday afternoon on the last session day of the 19th Congress. This is the first time in Philippine history that a sitting vice president has been impeached. A total of 215 members of Congress signed the fourth impeachment complaint and transmitted it right away to the Senate. But the upper chamber already adjourned, and the next Senate session will resume on June 2, 2025, making the impeachment trial unlikely to happen before the May election. Senate needs to get 2/3 or 16 signatures of senators for the impeachment to happen. What happens between now and June 2, 2025? Will the impeachment trial of VP Sara take place at the start of the 20th Congress? Live at the BNC studio, 2 of the 11 appointed prosecutors of the House of Representatives for the impeachment trial. First, we have Batangas 2nd District Representative, Congresswoman Gerville Luistro. Good morning, Congresswoman Jinky Beatrix.
Good morning, Attorney Karen, and thank you for having me here again.
And next, we have Eastern Samar 4th District Representative and House Minority Leader, Congressman Marcelino, Libanan. Good morning, Congressman Nonoy.
Good morning, Karen. I'm the 4-piece representative. Isang
Yes.
Samar sa
Oo nga, no?
District.
Yes, nagkamali po. But thank you so much for your time here today. And really, it's an honor to have 2 lawyers here guesting.
Thank you very much, Karen, for having me.
So first, let's discuss. There were initially 3 impeachment complaints that were very well known to the public, filed by the Makabayan Bloc, Akbayan, and another from a religious group. But people didn't really know about this 4th impeachment complaint. Was there really a deliberate attempt to keep this under wraps until it was signed by majority of Congress? Anyone?
First, the 3 impeachment complaints were endorsed by members of the minority. Percy Sindanya of the Akbayan, Gabriela Partolis by Arlen Brosas, the 2nd impeachment complaint, and Raul Manuel of the Kabataan Party List, and Franz Castro of Teachers Party List. And the 4th impeachment complaint, the 3rd impeachment complaint was endorsed again by Congressman Bordado of Naga, who belongs to the minority also, and Lex Colada, who is also a member of the minority. So we now have 3 impeachment complaints, and it needs to be simplified so that there's a necessity to make one impeachment complaint which will encompass all the articles contained in the 3 impeachment complaints. Now, Karen, the House has only 2 choices if it receives impeachment complaints. Number 1 is if it is endorsed by less than 1/3 of all the members. As we see here, 3 impeachment complaints endorsed by six of our colleagues, naturally this will go to the Committee on Justice. And in the Committee on Justice, there will be determination as to sufficiency in form and substance. So, mahabang proseso ito. This will be a long process because it's like a preliminary investigation in court.
Yes.
But as we see it, hearings has already been conducted by our Quadcom, by our
Good
Committee on Good Government, and all these charges have been heard already by the Filipino people, so that we are left with no choice. The Speaker is left with no choice because it is now our constitutional duty, especially the Speaker and the House itself, to properly endorse this to the proper venue. Now,
Kong Jinky, as a lawyer, do you think that there was already sufficient basis for this impeachment, meaning that it didn't have to be referred to a Committee on Justice, that this should go to trial immediately?
For one who has participated or who participated in the investigation during the Good Government Committee hearing, I honestly submit that we have a sufficient basis to initiate and endorse this complaint. And as is stated by our minority leader, we simplified the complaint. We incorporated all the important grounds for the impeachment into one, so as not to face the crisis of having less time to be able to hear this in the Justice Committee. And it so happened that it was supported by 215 members of the House, way beyond the required 1/3 of the members to be able to endorse and transmit it to the Senate. And that is why it led to the fourth mode of the filing of the complaint, and that is by support and endorsement of more than 1/3 or 1/3 of the membership of the House.
But when you say we, does it mean that Congress or the minority of Congress prepared this fourth impeachment complaint? Who prepared the fourth impeachment complaint?
I have to say that it is a collective effort of the 19th Congress of the Philippines, particularly the 215 who signed the impeachment complaint. And if you will review the grounds which were raised in the fourth impeachment complaint, the one transmitted in the Senate, it is indeed a representation of most of the grounds which were raised in the three first impeachment complaints which were first filed.
So would you describe this as a consolidation of the three complaints?
I believe, yes. The only problem with the first three impeachment complaints is that it does not have the support of 1/3 of the members of the House, which, as stated by our minority leader, kailangang dumaan sa Justice Committee, which is under the rule given a period of 60 days to resolve the sufficiency in form and substance of the impeachment complaint, which I believe will not be, we will not have the sufficient time to do it anymore.
So it was a way to also deal with the challenge of lack of time. Minority Leader Kong Nonoy, bakit po on the last day of the 19th Congress, lumabas yung lahat ng signatures? Everyone, there was already a religious rally. Everyone was kept in suspense as to whether aabot pa talaga yung impeachment.
Well, I think there was too much pressure to the members of Congress from their respective constituencies that it became an overwhelming decision, which was relayed to the office of the Speaker by the members themselves. And Karen, I'd like also to inform our viewers that there are still members of Congress who are still willing to sign the endorsement. So I think there will be supplemental filing of this complaint because others were not around to sign the complaint.
But would that even matter, considering that the required number has been met? What would be the purpose served of having a supplemental endorsement?
Well, it would matter because members of Congress represent their constituencies. In other words, they are now airing the views of their constituencies.
Well, initially, President Bongbong Marcos called on Congress not to push through with the impeachment. But when we saw the signatures of the endorsements, number one signatory was Congressman Sandro Marcos, the son of the president. What do you make of that?
Ako, Attorney Karen, I wish to believe na nanaig kay Senior Majority Leader, Attorney Karen, yung kanyang constitutional duty, being a member of the House, no? Na pagaman the executive has its own stand, has its own take about the impeachment, we have to consider still that Congressman Sandro Marcos is a member of the 19th Congress of the Philippines, a legislative body, and it is the constitutional duty of the Congress to really take up the impeachment complaints. So, with respect to him being the first signatory in the impeachment complaint, I am not aware at all that siya pala yung unang pumirma. I was 182, no? And it was only after everybody has signed that I learned that it was the first who signed the impeachment complaint.
And Kong Nonoy, is there any coordination? I mean, nagpasabi pa kayo sa Malacanang na matutuloy pa rin yung impeachment?
Hindi po, Attorney Karen, na nagpunta kami sa isang venue at doon kami nagpahayag, nag-meeting. Pero nakaredy na po yung impeachment, simplified and consolidated impeachment complaint. Like Congresswoman Jinky, hindi ko po alam na pumirma si Sandro.
Hindi niyo nakita?
Hindi namin
dun sa,
nakita.
ano,
But it was an overwhelming decision. Kasi, you know, the office of the President and Congress are two branches which are political branches of government. At pinakikinggan dito ang sentimento ng taong bayan. Tama po si Congresswoman Jinky na they must have recognized that the legislative branch has its own constitutional duty. And in this case, we do not have any other recourse but to endorse this.
How long did it take to gather the signatures?
I believe it started Monday this week. Kasi
So,
ako,
about 4
Attorney
days.
Karen, I was able to sign it just yesterday. That's why I'm 182. I don't know with my law kung anong number ba ni boss.
But was everyone able to read the full complaint
Yes, of
before
course.
signing?
Yes, of course.
Yes, of course. As a matter of fact, Attorney Karen, since the 3 impeachment complaints were filed, the members of the House were evaluating and studying the complaints already on their own until the time when we needed to come up with a collegial decision. And of course, malaki yung naging participation ng mga parties to which we belong. As a matter of fact, during the caucus, during the meeting, significant yung role ng mga parties to where these members of the House belong.
Is there anyone particularly among the members of the Congress who took the lead in drafting the 4th impeachment complaint?
I believe none. Kasi it was a collegial decision talaga. It was a collegial stand to come up with the 4th impeachment complaint, which will be a representation of the most important grounds for impeachment, and to transmit it before we take the recess.
And when we talk about the procedure after this, the 11 prosecution members of the Congress, paano po yan nabuo? Meron din po bang separate meeting to decide who will be members of the prosecution? We have here the 11 members of the prosecution team, and of course, the 2 of you are here.
Attorney Karen, there was no meeting about the members of the prosecution team, and yung aming pagka-include dyan, it was done by way of election. And even myself, I was surprised, should I say, na after the Quadcom, after the good government, meron palang mas malaki pang trabaho na kailangang harapin. But of course, this is a constitutional duty na hindi namin pwedeng talikuran, and we really have to do being the representative of the people of the Philippines.
And everyone here is up for re-election. Paano nila ibabalance po sa, meron po bang mga hindi for re-election? Because how do you balance this with the campaign period?
Attorney Karen, I
Oh,
think
yes.
halos mag-i-election ng mga yan, mga kandidato po ang mga yan.
Opo,
This
yeah.
is an additional burden to us. But as I said, this is our constitutional duty. And konting lawyers nga lang ngayon ang 19th Congress. Kaya,
Ilan po ba ang lawyers sa 19th Congress? Would you know?
Siguro, yan na. Baka konti na lang ang natirang wala dyan. And each of us were elected based on the necessity and I think competence on each and every one of us. Like for myself, I was elected to represent the minority and being a senior member because I was in the 11th Congress and I have seen a lot of impeachments already, especially that I handled the Committee on Justice in the 12th Congress.
And in your experience, Kong Nonoy, this is the 4th impeachment in the history of the Philippines. Is that correct? Would you- because we have President Erap Estrada, I think Ombudsman, and then CJ Corona, and then now this.
I think this is the third which will reach the Senate, which will reach the Senate.
Third one to reach the Senate, yes. Yeah. And paano nyo nga po, kayo ngayon, how are you preparing for the trial? Is it already something that you're preparing for or you're still waiting to see what Senate will do?
I think it's best kung hintayin natin kung anong magiging take ng Senate, no? Kasi it's still 4 months to go before June 2 and we have yet to know kung anong magiging stand ng Senate, whether to convene during recess as an impeachment court, take their oath as judges of the impeachment court, or to wait until they resume on June 2. As discussed earlier, medyo divided yung schools of thought dito. There's a school of thought which says na hindi pwedeng mag-convene because the Senate is on recess, but there's another school of thought which says that impeachment is different from legislative process, so they can convene anytime, even when during recess.
And according to the Constitution, Attorney Karen, once they receive the articles of impeachment, they shall organize the impeachment court forthwith, meaning it's immediate, and that hearing shall be conducted succeedingly and except only on holidays and Saturdays and Sundays. Tuloy-tuloy yan.
Yeah. So regardless of whether some of the senators are up for re-election, it should not be a reason not to proceed with the impeachment trial.
That is also their constitutional duty, as this is our constitutional duty.
And if there isn't sufficient time to conclude the impeachment trial within the months left until the elections, how do we contend with a change in the membership of the Senate?
Attorney Karen, it is like in court. Even if the judge is replaced, you do not start from zero. You just continue. And during elections, we are only electing 12 members of the Senate. So the remaining 12 senators are there. So they can proceed if they so desire.
And going back to those up for re-election, everyone in the prosecution team are up for re-election. Is that correct?
I think most of us.
Most of
but not all.
everyone there. And you also have, of course, those who signed. The information is publicly available. That's why we know that Congressman Sandro Marcos was the first to sign. With the rally that the INC held, that called for the people and Congress not to proceed with the impeachment of Vice President Sara, are you concerned that there might be a backlash in the upcoming elections? But before you answer that question, we'll have to take a short break. At the forefront, we'll be right back.
Beauty, adventure.
I do agree with that. I would rather spend my money on travel.
We got you. Join Marie Lozano where she uncovers the untold stories and surprises in the world of lifestyle.
Let me get my geek on. That was so amazing.
The Lifestyle Lab on BNC, the Billionario News Channel. Every morning,
We won't mention
let's start your day right and laugh with fun. Join Paulo Del Rosario
So excited to bring it all here for you.
and Asis Carillo.
Always a pleasure sharing our mornings with you. Don't forget, wherever this day takes you, choose joy and spread kindness.
And Monique Tuzon.
Your mornings are no fun with us. Join us in the next hour for stories and conversations that matter.
Only here on It's a Beautiful Day!
Bawat anggulo ng bawat issue.
Nagsagawa ng mock polls ang Commission on Elections sa 30 barangay sa bansa kaninang umaga.
Bawat detalye ng mga napapanahong pangyayari.
Pinaiimbestigahan sa Kamara ang hindi pa rin nababayarang reimbursements ng mga ospital sa PhilHealth.
Tuloy-tuloy na ihahatid kahit hanggang Sabado at Linggo.
At yan ang ating weekend agenda ngayong Sabado. Ako si George Cahiles. Sa bawat issue may anggulo at ang balita may agenda.
Hello and welcome to Follow the Money. I'm Rain Musni. Join us as we explore the tools and insights you need to jumpstart your financial journey.
We empower.
This country deserves a real choice in the next election.
We motivate.
Do not invest money that you're not able to afford to lose.
Changes that are vital.
We're monitoring the sale of these products online.
Follow the Money with Rain Musni.
Keep it here on the Billionario News Channel. Always on top.
Welcome back at the forefront. Congressman Nonoy, Congresswoman Jinky, the massive Iglesia ni Cristo rally called on Congress to heed PBBM's call not to impeach Vice President Sara Duterte. With the upcoming May 2025 elections, are you not worried about the INC block vote?
Of course, that will be a factor which has to be considered for the purpose of the forthcoming election, Attorney Karen. No? As a matter of fact, hindi lang sa Iglesia, I think for all Filipinos, that will be part of their parameter, factor to consider kung sinong pipiliin nilang mga susunod na elective official. But I hope people will understand as well that this is a constitutional duty na hindi namin pwedeng talikuran. Ito po'y kasama sa ating pinanumpaang tungkulin bilang miyembro ng ika-19 na Kongreso ng Pilipinas, and we really have to do this duty.
And Kong Nonoy, your House Minority Leader, are you not worried that there would be really a divisive effect on the Philippines and distract from what needs to be done in terms of reforms and the other issues that we're facing as a country?
Attorney Karen, we are sworn to uphold our Constitution. And this is one of those provided for by the Constitution. Ito po yung sinumpaan namin. Na pag may impeachment complaint at nakikita naman natin yung merits, especially this case, because this has been heard by the House itself. For 4 months, 4 na buwan na nakita ito, and walang ibang siguro pinakamalaking pinanood ng taong bayan. Not only in the Philippines, but internationally viewed. Millions of viewers napanood po ito. At,
but when you say napanood Kong Nonoy and heard for 4 months, that relates to budget hearings or even committee hearings that supposedly relate to one, like hearing the budget or even briefings, budget briefings. So don't you think that there's also a view that those hearings were used to fish for evidence or prosecute to give way and pave the way for an impeachment?
Kanya-kanyang views tayo dito, but the evidence is there. Nakita natin, and the testimonies are there, the witnesses are there. So what do you do with this? I respect the INC. I respect their black vote, but we are constitutionally bound to perform our duty. Dalawa lang ang choice namin. One is to hear this in the House of Representatives or to endorse this to to the Senate. Ganun lang ang choice namin. But with an overwhelming endorsement from more than 2/3 of all the members, 1/3 lang ang requirement, more than double ang pumirma. So, nandun na ito sa
So you
kamay
are
ng impeachment
confident with the strength of the impeachment complaint?
Yes.
Same with you,
Yes,
Congresswoman.
Attorney
Gerville.
Karen. Yes.
And so let's go through the grounds in the impeachment. There are 7 articles of impeachment. Number 1, conspiracy to kill the president, the first lady, and the speaker. So would you say that this is an impeachable offense, or would this have been covered by a local law, like filing? Because remember, there was already a complaint filed in the, I think, local, and I think NBI held an investigation, but it seems like that no criminal case was filed in relation to this supposed conspiracy to kill the president.
For the first ground, Karen, Attorney Karen, we anchored that under betrayal of public trust, because our appreciation of that for the second highest official of the land to articulate a threat to the life against the highest official of the land, the wife of this highest official, and the 4th highest official of the land, that would be a betrayal of public trust, no? Of course, we understand that if this threat will be executed, no one else will succeed to the president but the vice president. And having manifested this kind of demeanor, the question now is whether or not she's still worthy of the trust of the public. And in the impeachment complaint, it was our stand that there's a sufficient basis for betrayal of public trust because of the threat that she articulated during that night when Attorney Sulaika Lopez was detained in the House of Representatives.
Mm-hmm. And going to the second ground, malversation of 612 million in confidential funds. Do you think there's any sufficient ground for this, considering that the Commission on Audit has not concluded its own investigation or audit of those funds?
Well, Attorney Karen, I think the Commission Audit has already reported and provided Congress the liquidation report of these funds. And we're able to see that the names of those who were given these funds were fictitious. So that is one strong ground also for impeachment.
And is that a practice that's not acceptable when it comes to confidential funds? I think that's something that's not clear to the public. When it comes to confidential funds, are you still supposed to disclose the people that have received the funds, or is it an acceptable reason that you're not supposed to disclose if they are what they call assets or intelligence assets whose security will be compromised?
From my end, Attorney Karen, public fund is public accountability. So notwithstanding the fact that it forms part of the confidential fund, to some extent, you should be able to prove that there are indeed recipients of this fund. Ang nangyari po dito sa confidential fund, supported as well by the NBI specimen signature examination. Bukod sa iisang tao lang ang may-ari nung penmanship or strokes ng perma, it was confirmed also by the PSA that these personalities do not appear at all in the data of the Philippine Statistics Authority. So how can we tell that these are real people who actually receive the money?
Okay. And next ground would be bribery and corruption at DepEd. Can you elaborate further on this?
For the third ground, I believe that it is because of the admission of the 3 DepEd officials that indeed mayroong payola na umiikot sa Department of Education. Of course, we understand that is a violation of the law on bribery and corruption, no? For us, our take on that is it can be considered also as a betrayal of public trust.
And for that matter, three officials
Yes.
of DepEd admitted to have received this payola from her office.
And then the next would be unexplained wealth and failure to disclose assets. How did this come about? Were you able to have access to bank accounts? The SALN, of course, is publicly available, but how were you able to reconcile undisclosed assets?
There are documents which were shared by former Senator Antonio Trillanes during the, I believe, Quadcom hearing, no, about what he claims to be ill-gotten wealth, drug money, things like that, no? And we would like to see as well during the impeachment process whether there will be sufficient evidence to support this allegation. That's why we considered it as well to be part of the ground for the impeachment complaint.
And Congresswoman Jinky, I would just like to have a follow-up question on that, because when we say that we'd like to see during this impeachment whether there are sufficient grounds to support this specific allegation, isn't that something that should be dealt with prior to the filing of the impeachment complaint? Kong Nonoy earlier raised that if this went to the House Committee on Justice, that is something that would have had the process akin to a preliminary investigation where they would determine if there are sufficient grounds, because constitutionally we can't use the impeachment court for a fishing expedition to gather evidence. It has to be done at the level of the prosecution before a complaint is filed. So, paano po yung evidence here in terms of allegations of ill-gotten
Well,
wealth?
for the first three grounds, I believe that the evidence is sufficient for the purpose of initiating the impeachment complaint. For the fourth, I believe that additional evidence has to be provided to be able to come up with a basis for the ill-gotten wealth. Nonetheless, I submit that there are discovery modes which can be resorted to during the impeachment trial.
Okay. And Kong Nonoy, what's your take on that as a lawyer?
Well, that's also my take that the first three impeachment complaints are more than enough.
And we have also a charge on involvement in extrajudicial killings relating to the Davao Death Squad. For those reading the complaint, I think during the hearings, committee hearings, it was clear that this related to an investigation on EJ case, which related to former President Duterte's policy on anti-drugs during the drug war. But this was not so much connected to Vice President Sara. So why was this also chosen as a ground for impeachment?
You know, Atty. Kara, this is one of the issues which is fondly asked, popularly asked by Filipino people. So we would like to consider that as well to become part of the impeachment complaint for the Filipino people to see whether there's really sufficient basis to include the same for the purpose of the impeachment process of the Vice President. But just like what Minority Leader has said, for the first three grounds, we are confident that there is solid basis to initiate an impeachment complaint. For the fourth and the fifth, we would like to resort to the discovery mode, which I believe is available during the impeachment trial.
And the sixth would be destabilization, insurrection, and public disorder. This relates to which specific acts of the Vice President?
Attorney Karen, there were a lot of public appearances and rallies where she uttered statements to destabilize our government that can be properly shown during the trial.
Okay, so those are different acts of the Vice President in the past, in public rallies. Okay, people were curious because this was not in relation to any of the committee hearings.
And they've been in her interviews.
So it's more of her public statements. Yeah. And lastly, abuse of power. So this relates to what specific acts?
Abuse of power, I believe, is because of the misuse of funds which happened in the Department of Education and the OVP, because apparently there is no reference at all with respect to the rules which have to be followed. But I believe this is just one of the several instances which can be considered as abuse of funds, abuse of power. I understand that there are seven, no? Seven, and the seventh ground, I believe, is like a summary of the totality of the acts which were committed by the Vice President. And to conclude our appreciation about this impeachment complaint, we submit really that the first three grounds are the one which is solid, and for the four remaining grounds, we will be looking forward to the development and progress of the impeachment process, hoping to see more evidence during the modes of discovery of evidence during the impeachment process.
House Minority Leader Kong Nonoy, you have also been in touch with the other members of the minority in Congress, and some of the impeachment complaints had less grounds. Did you think as a strategy that it was better to just stick with the strongest three grounds, considering also the limited time left to hear this impeachment complaint?
Well, first, the first three impeachment complaints were sent to the archives. So all those who endorsed in the minority signed in this impeachment complaint. But during presentation of evidence in the Senate, at any point in time when evidence is more than enough already, the prosecution can stop and submit it to the impeachment court.
Yeah, that happened during the impeachment also of Chief Justice Renato Corona.
Yes.
They had several impeachment grounds, but they stopped at some point when the prosecution submitted the case for decision.
To amplify, Karen, if we are able to establish sufficient evidence, even for the first ground only, we can actually stop already if we are confident already that that would warrant the impeachment of the Vice President.
So in your strategy here, you included other grounds like the 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th, even if you think the first three are the strongest.
Yes, especially considering that there is public clamor about those four succeeding grounds na mapag-usapan din itong mga ito, especially the EJK, considering the testimonies we've heard during the Quadcom hearing. Well, the only challenge is whether there is really a connection between the Vice President and the issue of extrajudicial killing.
But isn't there other forums already to discuss that? We've had the Quadcom hearings, and from what we understand, the Quadcom hearings will still continue in the 20th Congress, regardless of the change in the composition of members of the Congress. And we have Congressman Ace Barbers, Congressman Dan Fernandez, who are not running for re-election in Congress. So don't you think that that can be the proper forum to see a link, if ever there is any, with EJKs and the Vice President?
We always need to go back, Attorney Karen, to the very purpose of the inquiry in aid of legislation. The one that we're doing in Quadcom is an inquiry in aid of legislation. The main purpose is to come up with laws to legislate, no? This impeachment process is an entirely different thing. We are seeking the removal from office of the second highest official of the land. And I believe that even with respect to the amount of evidence required, the nature of evidence required, they are entirely different. So, pagaman we are discussing possibly one and the same thing about EJK, magkaiba po ang purpose ng Quadcom, that is inquiry in aid of legislation, and the impeachment process, which seeks the removal from office of the Vice President.
And to add to that, we are not sure whether Quadcom will continue during the 20th Congress. It's an entirely different Congress. So Congress has to decide whether to make a Quadcom again and continue with those hearings.
Okay, so wala pa pong decision whether the Quadcom hearings will continue.
I wish to add, Attorney Karen, that during the recess, the Quadcom will continue its investigation, its inquiry in aid of legislation. what Minority Leader is referring to is after the election, because after the 19th Congress, totally the Congress is dissolved. It will be an entirely new Congress by the 20th Congress. So we are not certain whether the 20th Congress will be creating again this mega committee we call quadruple committee.
And how confident are you that the same leadership will be there, that you'll still have House Speaker Martin Romualdez as the Speaker of the House?
For me, I'm confident that will still be Speaker Martin Romualdez. I think res ipsa loquitur, no? Ang ganda-ganda ng leadership ni Speaker. The support of the members of the House is overwhelming. And as you can see, we have one direction. We're leading towards one direction. So that manifests the trust and the confidence of the most of the members of the 19th Congress to the leadership of Speaker Martin Romualdez.
Well, I'll take advantage of the fact that I have two lawyers here, so I'm going to pick your brains on some of the legal intricacies of this. When we talk about accountability, why would it not be sufficient to, for example, file a case, for example, in relation to potentially any links to EJ case, instead of making this a ground for impeachment without sufficient evidence yet? Considering that with respect to the Vice President, it's not clear in our Constitution that she also enjoys the same immunity from suit that the President enjoys.
Well, this is Congress, and we are 215 who signed this endorsement. Some believe that this shall be included in the impeachment complaint. The fourth and the fifth, they believe that shall be included. So this was lumped into these 6 articles of impeachment.
So you're going by the consensus
Yeah,
as to
it's a consensus.
whether to include it or not.
Yes.
And if there is, for example, no trial that proceeds because of the lack of time, or as you said, Congresswoman Jinky, this really is up to Senate, whether they will convene despite their adjournment. What's going to happen next? What can the public expect? Will this be refiled? What's going to happen procedurally?
Well, I believe that either before election or after election, the Senate really has to take up this impeachment complaint, no? Because the only challenge that we will be facing is the 1-year prohibition period, because under the rule, there has to be one impeachment complaint only every year, no? But since the Congress has transmitted already the impeachment complaint to the Senate, it becomes now the constitutional duty of the Senate to take that up, either before or after this forthcoming election.
So talagang magkakaroon pa rin
And
ng
to add to that,
trial. Yes.
even if we will be in after elections when the new senators could have been elected already, we do not need, I believe, to refile because we have filed already. And that filing is good for 1 year because the next allowable initiation is after 1 year.
Yes.
So, tuloy-tuloy na yan.
How do you plan to prepare for the impeachment trial? But before you answer that question, we'll have to take a short break. At the Forefront, we'll be right back. Welcome back at the Forefront. We have here 2 members of the prosecution team. So, Congresswoman Jinky, House Minority Leader Kong Nonoy, how do you plan to prepare for the impeachment trial?
Attorney Karen, we have yet to meet and discuss, no?
So, nalaman niyo lang po yung appointment niyo?
Just last night.
Just last night? Oh my goodness. So, surprise talaga.
Yes. Kailangan naming mag-usap, kailangan naming mag-meeting, and I honestly believe we need to divide the work among us because this is really a tedious process, no? It is the House of Representatives which we will be representing during the impeachment process before the Senate. And of course, for me, who is a neophyte, I will be relying on the wisdom and the expertise of our leaders like our Minority Leader, Kong Nonoy Libanan.
And Kong Nonoy, how do you plan to balance this with campaigning?
Well, it depends on the Senate. If they plan to have this on June 2, so we can campaign.
So here's something I'm curious about, because the timing really, this is unprecedented in the history of the Philippines, where the timing of the filing of the complaint and then the transmission to the Senate is just so close to the elections. So if, for example, as Congresswoman Jinky said, because this is not the same as a regular session for Senate, so they can theoretically convene. That's one school of thought. So if they do convene and proceed with the impeachment trial, what's going to happen to members of the Congress? Because midway, there's a May election. So if after the elections, some of them don't get re-elected, then what happens during the trial? They still can be part of the prosecution? Wala namang mga limitations about that?
For members of the prosecution team who will not win in this coming election, definitely they cannot participate anymore in the prosecution. And the Congress has to elect additional members of the prosecution team to represent the House in the impeachment process.
And Kong Nonoy, any other thoughts on this?
You asked about how this will proceed if we are campaigning. Currently, we can also designate private prosecutors for this, as we have done this before. So, but the usual practice is that we are assigned to each article. So maybe two of us will be assigned to each article for prosecution.
And do you already have some private prosecutors in mind as to who to designate?
Not yet.
Attorney, hindi pa kami nag-usap. Even to this time na magkatabi kami ni Maino, hindi pa kami nag-usap about the impeachment process. So I honestly believe that we really have to sit down and talk about this, the prosecution team.
Personal questions, how did you find out, Congresswoman Jinky, that you were selected in the prosecution team?
My initial reaction,
Paano mo nalaman din? Parang sino na lang nagsabi sa inyo and what was your initial reaction?
Well, prior to the announcement, may biro-biroan, no? I'm not taking it seriously until I heard it in the floor, my name being read by Majority Leader, no? So it was like a really an overwhelming thing for me because I'm a first-termer. At sabi ko nga sa aking mga kaibigan sa House, I think this is something too big for a first-termer, but nonetheless a constitutional duty that I really have to face.
What about you, Kong Nonoy? Paano niyo po nalaman?
Well, I sincerely expected this because...
you expected it?
Because I am the leader of the minority and I am a lawyer. And I have gone through impeachment processes already. And most especially in this case where 6 of my members endorsed the impeachment, the 3 impeachment complaints.
Well, you have witnessed several impeachments in the Philippines. And kanina yung nasabi mo nga 3 lang po yung pumunta sa Senate. There was one impeachment, I think that's with a former ombudsman, an incumbent ombudsman at that time, but that ombudsman resigned before it went to trial. So what can we expect here? If, for example, Vice President Sara, for some reason, resigns, would it follow the same path then, that there would be no impeachment trial?
Attorney Karen, for me, this is my humble opinion, no? Kasi if you will check the impeachment complaint, there are 2 prayers. One is the impeachment of the Vice President. The second is the prayer for perpetual disqualification to hold office. In the event that the Vice President resigns from the office of the OVP, the issue of removal will become moot and academic. But it is my humble submission that it will not stall or stop the impeachment process because of another remaining and standing issue. That is the perpetual disqualification to hold office. An issue which we also need to thresh out during the impeachment process.
So you're saying that regardless of whether there's a resignation, that the impeachment court would still have jurisdiction?
That is my humble submission, Attorney Karen, because that is an integral, significant part of the impeachment complaint. 2 important prayers. One is the impeachment of the Vice President, and second is her perpetual disqualification to hold office.
What about you, Kong Nonoy? What is your legal position on that?
I subscribe to that statement of Congresswoman Jinky, that these are two important things, and this shall be decided by the impeachment court, even if she resigns.
It's going to be interesting because in the past, when we had a public official that was impeached by Congress, when there was a resignation, then this did not proceed to trial anymore. So I don't know also, I think constitutionally, there's a question as to whether the impeachment court would have jurisdiction in that case. Because you already have someone who's no longer in a position to be removed from office if they voluntarily resign. But if, for example, there is an impeachment trial and the Vice President is not convicted, and should she run for office in 2028 and win, are you not afraid of a possible retaliation from the Dutertes?
Well, I think that is part of the political landscape, should I say, and I am just hoping and praying that people will understand, that includes the Vice President, that this is not personal, this is a constitutional duty that we really need to face.
And to add to that, Attorney Karen, this is what our Constitution provides. We are in a democracy, we are in a multi-party system, and we have different duties and responsibilities under this Constitution. We have the minority, the majority, and this is one of it. So, my retaliation, wala. This is our sworn obligation under the Constitution.
And President Duterte, former President Duterte, has volunteered to be part of the defense team. How do you foresee facing him in an impeachment trial? Do you think it's going to be more challenging having a former president, and no less than former President Duterte, be on the defense team?
Well, that will be very exciting for me because we have been together in the 11th Congress. We are both lawyers. So this is a good occasion for us to see each other again.
Are you friends?
Yes, we are friends.
Up to now, are you friends with former President Duterte?
I don't know. I don't know to know.
Congresswoman Jinky, kanina sabi mo nga, as a first-termer, you felt overwhelmed. But now, first-termer being the prosecution team, and then facing a former president as a part of the defense.
We faced each other already during the quad hearing. And I appreciate the president, the former president, as really generous in giving information. As a resource person, he really talks. He talks a lot, no? Unlike other resource person who would keep on invoking the right against self-incrimination, the right to privacy, and the right to remain silent, si former President Duterte talagang he talks a lot. So I believe that it will be a very meaningful hearing, having him on board as part of the defense team.
And parting words, what can we expect in the upcoming days? Because Congress officially has adjourned, correct?
Yes.
19th Congress. So can we expect anything to happen between now until the elections in relation to this impeachment?
Nasa Senado ang bola. So if they convene an impeachment court, then we perform our constitutional duty to prosecute.
Well said, House Minority Leader Nonoy Libanan. Nasa bola na ng Senate. Nasa court na ng Senate ang bola. Thank you so much. Unless the 23 senators agree to have special sessions between now and June 2, 2025, no impeachment trial will take place before the May elections. Whether the trial happens during the current 19th Congress or the 20th Congress, everything depends on a numbers game. The May elections has gotten more interesting because of this latest political development, and Filipinos await with bated breaths. Be timely informed, be insightful of the news. Always stay at the forefront. Join us again tomorrow for meaningful conversations that would help you form an objective personal opinion. This is Attorney Karen Jimeno. Thank you for spending your hour with us.